How do you get comfortable speaking in front of people, especially in front of large groups? Well, the first thing to realize is that whether you're speaking to 30 people or 30,000, you're still speaking to one person at a time, and you're being perceived by one person at a time. So don't think about all those people and having to amplify your message by the number of people in the audience. Just pick a person in the audience and speak to them, like to that man in the third row, that lady in the back, or that person in the balcony, or you sometimes can change, speak to that person, to that person, to that person, but always one person at a time. And that way, if you don't think about all the others, it'll make it much more natural and easy for you to connect to that one person, and everyone else will be along for the ride. Also, don't psych yourself out thinking that you have to be liked by all these people, that you're being judged by all these people, because it's overwhelming for our psyche to feel like all these people are judging us, right? So again, remember that people are here because they're interested in something that you have to say. They're already interested. They're already paying attention. They already, quote unquote, like you. They're either here because they want to hear what you have to say, or because they're interested in the topic. So as long as you're prepared, they will like what's happening in front of them. So of course, that brings me to be prepared. Like tonight I was hosting the Youth America Grand Prix Awards. It's a ballet competition. And before I stepped on stage, I checked my script and I read it a couple of times. I was prepared, and I stepped out on that stage and I felt great because I didn't feel like, oh, I have to guess what I'm saying. I knew what I was saying. So preparation is key, but always be open to something unexpected that can happen on stage. Life is full of surprises, and so can be life on stage or in front of other people. In this awards ceremony that I was hosting for Youth America Grand Prix, I had to announce the dance schools as the dancers were coming out on stage, and my list of schools was completely out of order. I was calling out schools and nobody was coming out. So we had to deal with that, right? And the next the next tip is acknowledge what's happening in the moment. For example, here we were, I was calling out the people. People weren't coming on stage. I knew it, the dancers knew it, the audience knew it. There was no not acknowledging it. So I said, well, it appears that, my name's, the school names are out of order. Well, why don't we let the dancers introduce themselves? And so I called the dancers on stage and gave them a chance to say their school name. They bowed and got off stage. So we solved that problem, but we acknowledged what was happening. So be ready to improvise, and that's always a good skill to practice in life, and then it'll be easy for you to do in front of people when you're speaking to them. At one point, my microphone disconnected. I was going to interview a dancer, and the cord just popped off, and we had no sound. So while we were fixing the sound, the audience, of course, was watching, and then when the sound was back on, I turned around to the audience and said, well, actually, we planned that to allow our dancers to practice the skill of improvising on stage and being ready for anything. And then I proceeded to do a little impromptu sound training for dancers so they can use that in their interviews when they give interviews when they're famous, right? So the audience kind of relaxed and they appreciated. They saw there was something unpredictable. If I got tense and nervous, then the audience would get tense and nervous, and then all of us would not know what to do. It would be like an escalating thing of tension. Instead, release that tension by talking about it, acknowledging it, and improvising on the spot. Don't be afraid of humor. Humor is a great way to relax yourself and the audience, and to connect with people. Like, at one point, this one girl came out, and I swear half the audience just screamed and yelled and cheered for her. And I said, well, I guess, it pays to come to these events with your own support group. These little humorous remarks, what they do is they ring true for people, and they kind of laugh, and because they recognize, what we all witnessed, right? So don't be afraid to make a little kind joke. People always appreciate that. Well, the most important thing for you to remember is always be yourself. Don't try to put on this announcer persona, or if you whatever the situation is, don't try to play a role, because people can always tell when somebody is not being themselves. Like Oscar Wilde said, try to be yourself, because or like it's generally worth being yourself because everyone else is taken. So because everyone else is taken, be yourself, and that will be the best way to connect to the audience and to release any tension that might be there. The last tip is the more you do something, the better you become at it. So with practice, you will become absolutely a pro. Stay tuned for more communication tips, and like this video if you liked it, and share it with your friends if you think it might be useful for them.